Michael Faraday, the Magnetic Man.
Michael Faraday was born in a tiny home in South London in 1791, the third child of James and Margaret Faraday. The Faraday family had just moved to London from northern England and hoped to improve their fortunes in the bustling capital city. James was a blacksmith, but consistently poor health kept him from working full-time. The Faradays sometimes struggled to have enough to eat and clung to their faith in God to sustain them.
A wondrous cross, on which the Prince of Glory died.
The Faradays were members of the Sandemanian Church, a group that modeled their church's beliefs and practices after the early Christians.
Michael, please hand me that saucer so I can finish the dishes.
Here you go, Mama.
Thank you. Now, what did you learn in church today?
I liked what the man said about Jesus and healing the lepers. Leprosy sounds kind of scary, though.
I think a lot of things are scary without Jesus, Michael.
Mama, why aren't we members of the state church?
Well, Michael, the state church is joined to the world. We wish to only be joined to God.
Young Michael loved to study and learn, but his school days were cut short due to a teacher's cruel insistence on conformity. One day, while Michael and his older brother Robert sat in the classroom, his school teacher decided to impart a harsh lesson.
Please state your name.
Robert Faraday, ma'am.
I'm sure all of you children heard his answer. And Robert, what is your brother's name?
Michael Faraday, ma'am.
Very good. And what, Robert, is the name of the king?
King George, ma'am.
Excellent. And Robert, what do you call the top of a house?
The roof, ma'am.
Precisely, Robert. It's a roof. You may be seated. Michael, please stand up.
Yes, ma'am.
Michael Faraday, please state your name.
Michael Faraday.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Please repeat that a little louder so all can hear.
Michael Faraday.
And what, Mr. Faraday, is your older brother's name?
Well, Robert.
Children, please, show some respect. Let your classmate speak. Michael, say rabbit.
Rabbit.
Michael, what is the name of the King of England?
King George.
How's that, Michael?
King George.
Robert, please stand up. Robert, please take this halfpenny. Put it in your pocket. Now, while the rest of us are trying to learn something new and not wasting time mispronouncing words, please run down to Mr. Carter's shop and buy a cane. We are going to see if a good thrashing can teach your brother how to pronounce words properly. Robert.
Yes, ma'am.
Go.
Mother, I ran home. The teacher,
Robert, what's wrong?
She wanted me to go buy a cane so she could beat Michael with it.
What?
For not saying his R's right.
Robert, take my hand. Let's go.
Good Queen Bess reigned from 1558 to 1603. She was the last monarch... Mrs. Faraday. Mrs. Faraday, can I help you?
Good day, ma'am. Michael, come. Let's go home.
With time, Michael was able to master his ability to say his R's, though there's no record of his ever attending school again. His education, however, was just getting started. At age 13, Michael started working as an errand boy for George Ribot, a bookbinder. Soon Ribot offered Michael an apprenticeship to learn the art of bookbinding. It was a job that would open the world to him.
Now, each of these books here is in a different stage of the binding process. These large printed pages have to be folded to make what we call a signature. And this is the stick you'll use to beat the folds flat, like this. So the signatures can be sewn together to form a book.
I understand, sir.
Then you'll need to boil wheat flour for the glue for the covers. When you have it all bound together and looking beautiful, you must glaze the cover with 2 coats of beaten egg white. Here. Then iron the cover with a hot iron. And finally, the spine. The gold leaf letters stamped on the spine will make it look magnificent. I'm sure you'll be able to master it all.
I have been watching and taking notes for the past year, sir.
Yes, I know.
But even more fascinating than the bookbinding process was the endless stream of interesting books which came through George Ribot's bookbinding shop.
Hey, Faraday, we're going out to play some ball. You want to join us?
Oh, thanks. But we just got this copy of Encyclopedia Britannica, Volume E. Mr. Ribot says I can take it out and copy some of the text and illustrations. The entry on electricity is amazing.
Well, staying back to study, huh? Well, that's shocking. Come on, Tom.
Good morning, Faraday. Here's a book you may enjoy, The Improvement of the Mind by the hymn writer Isaac Watts.
Thank you, sir. May I look at it tonight?
Always, Faraday, always.
Well, this is interesting. No man is obliged to learn and know everything, for it is utterly impossible. Yet all persons are under some obligation to improve their own understanding. Otherwise, it will be a barren desert. Robert, have you seen this book by Isaac Watts?
Dear brother, what is it you have here? The Improvement of the Mind? It sounds intellectual.
It's amazing. He gives so much advice on learning, and he says that every day you should stop and think over what new ideas and truths that you gained that day. He says, no day without a line.
He says what?
It means always be improving. Look, this is my book. Watts says that if you want to improve your mind, you should keep a commonplace book, where you write down the thoughts and observations and facts that you come across every day. That way, if you find something you want to remember, or a fact that you want to check out later to be sure it's true, you'll have it all in one place.
Wow. Well, that doesn't seem a very common thing to do.
No, but I fear anyone who sees me will think it's all too common.
Michael, there's no shame in being a blacksmith's son.
Or a blacksmith.
Or a blacksmith like me.
Exactly. I've always loved helping Father in his smithy shop, but I read these books, and each day I realize more and more that what I want to be is a scientist. I just fear that science is such an exalted art that someone with no real education, with no real standing in society, could ever truly become one. I'm just a boy who binds books.
And does an exceptional job from what I hear.
Look here. I want to show you something. Let me just move these things, get my book. Watts says we shouldn't be too hasty to form a theory from just a few observations. Well, here's a new book called Conversations in Chemistry. It's the story of a woman telling 2 young students about science and conducting experiments. So I started doing my own.
Experiments? You?
Yes. Look, I've lined this glass jar with metal foil. You know how sometimes when the air is especially dry and you pull a blanket over you and it sparks? And sometimes you can even get a jolt?
Right.
Well, that's electricity, just like lightning. And with these jars, I can store electricity and release it whenever I want. Put your hand right here.
All right.
Ready?
For
the electricity.
Yow!
That is electricity.
Michael, that's amazing! You're amazing!
Oh, it's just a silly experiment. But what if we could find a way to harness electricity, to make it work for us, to make it do our bidding? Then almost anything would be possible.
I believe it!
I'd love to try, but I fear the door is bolted shut before me.
Then you shall have to knock the door down. Michael, if there's anything I can do to help you...
I don't know what that would be, but thank you.
Although Michael Faraday was not rich by this world's standards, he was most fortunate to have the support of his family.
Robert, could you lend me a shilling?
For you, Michael? I suspect I can't. Wait, you haven't just burned your room down with a shower of sparks, have you?
No. The City Philosophical Society is sponsoring a series of lectures by John Tatum. Mr. Ribot suggests I should go to them, but they cost a shilling apiece.
Ah.
They're about, well, everything. chemistry, astronomy, mechanics, geology, all of natural philosophy, and of course, electricity.
A shilling it is, then.
Excuse me, may I sit here?
Yes, of course.
Thanks. I've seen you here before, I think. You're always writing things down in your book. And now you're drawing?
Yes, it's the best way to remember everything without being able to take my experiments home with me.
May I take a look? At your book, I mean, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
These illustrations are stupendous.
Thank you.
My name's Benjamin. Benjamin Abbott.
Oh, how do you do?
Ladies and gentlemen!
I'm Faraday, Michael Faraday.
Welcome to a feast for the eyes, the senses, and the mind. Tonight I present a topic you've all been waiting for. Electricity. In Italy, just a few years ago, lived a great philosopher and physician, Luigi Galvani by name. He discovered that if you strike the limbs of a dead frog with an electric charge, the muscle will move. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a Volta-pile. It is the creation of another great Italian scientist, Mr. Alessandro Volta. Now, you have surely noticed that if you pull on a woolen shirt on a cold, dry day, you may feel a buzz. And sometimes the very hairs on your head will stand on end. This Volta-pile is a true scientific achievement, for it can release not only a stored-up bolt of electricity, but a continuous current of electrical force. Now I present to you this humble frog. Behold the power of electricity as I touch this electrode to his leg. Oh! Watch out!
The frog! It's getting away!
I have just about...
I think he should stick to dead frogs from here on.
You may be right.
Quite a show in there tonight, wouldn't you say?
I'll say it was, Mr. Abbott.
Benjamin,
then. I hope my notes will be detailed enough so I can recreate all his experiments.
You do your own experiments?
Well, yes. Such as I can without a proper laboratory. I put together my own Volta-pile. You can see it sometime if you'd like.
Absolutely. Michael, this is outstanding.
Well, Benjamin, it's not nearly as large as Tatum's. Obviously, mine isn't as powerful, but it's the same principle in miniature.
How did you make it?
From Volta's own instructions. Look, I took 7 copper halfpennies and 7 discs I cut from zinc. I insert between them pasteboard coated with salt water. Voila, an electrical force. And when I connect each end of the stack with a metal wire, it produces a continuous current. Now watch this. I've attached a copper wire to each end, then dipped the other end of the wires in magnesium sulfate. Now, what do you see?
It's bubbling. The bubbles are covering the wires.
Yes. In about 2 hours' time, the electrical charge will have completely decomposed the magnesium sulfate. That is to say, the electrical force has caused the compound to completely separate. And instead of magnesium sulfate, what we have here is plain old magnesia.
You, sir, are a bona fide scientist. Are you going to go into science?
Well, my apprenticeship at the bindery will be up soon, and then, I don't know. Mr. Ribot has been nothing but generous to me these past half-dozen years, but I'm a nobody. I hear about the work at the Royal Institution right here in London, where Sir Humphrey Davy is discovering new elements. Sodium, potassium, barium, calcium, every time I open a newspaper, but I can only pray that I too will have a chance to so closely read the book of nature.
One day,
Faraday, good morning. Hard at work pounding the folds flat, I see.
Yes, sir, Mr. Dance. Preparing a signature. I hope you've been satisfied with our bindery work?
Oh, indeed.
How can I help you?
Faraday, I want to help you. Ribot showed me your notes from Tatum's lectures. You know that I am a member of the Royal Society.
Yes?
Yeah. I think you would very much enjoy attending Sir Humphrey Davy's lectures, which is why I want to give you this ticket to the rest of his current series.
What? Mr. Dance, I don't know what to say, but thank you.
Michael attended Davy's lectures, taking the same meticulous notes as before. He was more convinced than ever that he wanted to live the life of a natural philosopher, a scientist. But when his bookbinding apprenticeship of 7 years ended, there were no prospects for scientific jobs for an unknown man of low social standing such as Michael Faraday. He wrote to the Royal Institution, Great Britain's most prominent scientific organization, asking if any position, no matter how humble, was available, but received no reply. So he prepared to work for another bookbinder, but he still longed to work in the field of science. Discouraged, he wrote a friend.
As long as I am in my present situation, I see no chance of getting out of it just yet, I must resign science entirely to those who are more fortunate in the possession of time and means.
Then one day, in Humphrey Davy's laboratory,
as we prepare the nitrogen trichloride... My eyes! My eyes! I'm blinded.
Since Davy couldn't see until his eyes healed, he needed a temporary assistant to help him with his work. Michael's friend, Mr. Dance, suggested that Michael would be the perfect person for the job. So Michael spent a glorious few days helping one of the world's top scientists. But when Davy's eyes healed, Michael was back to binding books.
Faraday, how do you fare?
Mr. Dance, I fare well today. How are you?
Oh, I'm well, but I sense that despite your skill, your talents are being wasted as a bookbinder.
Oh, you are too kind. And I must thank you again for connecting me with Sir Davy. It was, well, wonderful looking over his shoulder for a few days. But I am glad that his eyes have healed.
So am I. But listen, why not bind a copy of all the voluminous notes you took of Sir Davy's lectures and send it to him?
Why, thank you, Mr. Dance. That's a wonderful idea.
Very shortly after Michael sent his notes to Sir Davy...
The morning mail, Mr. Faraday.
Thank you, sir.
A good day to you, sir.
Oh, what's this? It's from Sir Davy.
Sir, I am far from being displeased with the proof you have given me of your confidence, and which displays great zeal, power of memory, and attention. I am obliged to go out of town, and shall not be settled in town until the end of January. I will then see you any time you wish. It would gratify me to be of any service to you. I wish it may be in my power. I am, sir, your obedient humble servant, H. Davy, December 24th, 1812.
Oh, how generous he is. I can hardly wait to see him again.
When they did meet, however, Davy could only tell Michael that he didn't know when another position at the Royal Institution would open. Then, in February, when the institution fired an assistant for getting in a fight, Davy called on Michael once again.
You understand, of course, that the open position is a rather rudimentary assignment.
Yes, sir.
And of course, you are trading a secure situation for one which offers no such sureties. As Sir Isaac Newton used to say, science is a harsh mistress. Science but poorly rewards those who devote themselves to her service.
But surely the privilege of working in the field helps one develop superior qualities.
I will leave the experience of a few years to set you right on that matter.
Michael was thrilled to be engaged in science on a daily basis, But some of his friends were more skeptical. Benjamin Abbott, for example.
Michael, I'm so glad for you, but your new position sounds pretty bottom of the ladder, doesn't it?
Well, it does only involve all the humble but necessary tasks of science. And it pays a little less than my old bookbinding job. But I get 2 rooms for lodging and a steady supply of coal and candles. And I can use the laboratory for my own experiments.
Well then, well done, chap.
And get this, the institution supplies me with all the freshly laundered aprons I could ever need.
I imagine you go through quite a few of those.
Yes, well, I'm constantly spilling nitrogen trichloride on them, so Davy is still fascinated by it.
You know, Michael, this is what I was working on just before we met this past autumn.
Yes, Sir Davy.
1 solution ammonium nitrate. 1 solution ammonium chloride. Now let us invert them over some fresh-made, pure, clean chlorine gas. As the chlorine reacts with the solution, I dare say that stings a little bit. Michael, please make a note to secure some masks for next time.
That seems wise. Oh, sir.
All right, now, let us take a piece of the compound, place it in the water, and add some phosphorus.
Oh, Sir Davy, are you all right?
Yes, so it seems. Michael, let's try that again. Except this time, let's do the exact opposite.
Yes, sir.
Michael Faraday's dedicated work quickly gained him more responsibility and freedom. In October 1813, Davy took him for an 18-month tour of Europe, meeting the top scientists of the day, including Volta himself. When he returned to London, he was thrilled to continue pushing the edges of science. In 1821, for example, a mysterious new discovery from Denmark had the Royal Institution buzzing.
Look here, Michael. An electrical current is passing through a wire. But when you put a compass by it, the compass needle moves. The question is, why?
Electricity and magnetism linked. Incredible. But how? It's as if electricity exerts a force around it, pushing the needle away. An electrical force. Robert, I've shown how electricity can make a compass needle move. But I wonder, instead of an electrified wire moving a magnetized compass needle, what if we could make a magnet move a wire?
Dear brother, that would be extraordinary.
I think it might work. And if it did, we could create continuous mechanical motion. All the applications would be endless, from industry to locomotion.
One day in his laboratory, as Michael followed up on his idea, he enlisted the help of his 14-year-old nephew, George.
Now, George, I put one end of an iron bar magnet in hot wax at the bottom of this basin with the top sticking out. Once the wax hardened around it to hold it in place, I poured mercury into the basin until only the very top of the magnet is visible. See?
I see it. Uncle, where do you buy all these things?
At the philosopher's shop. Now, I've suspended this wire so that its one end is in the mercury. And here's the moment of truth. I'm attaching one terminal of this Volta pile to the wire's top end and connecting the other terminal to the mercury. Let's see.
Uncle, the wire. It's moving around the magnet in a circle.
Precisely. The wire is rotating around the magnet. Now, let me just try one little modification. If I detach the magnet so it's floating, yet with its bottom tethered to the basin, and I swap the suspended wire for one that is fixed to the middle of the basin... Yes! George, do you see?
Instead of the wire moving around the magnet is now revolving around the wire.
There they go. We have succeeded at last.
At that moment, Michael Faraday had just invented the world's first electric motor, converting electrical energy into mechanical energy. 10 years later, in 1831, he did the reverse when he invented the first electric dynamo, converting mechanical energy into electrical energy. It was the turning point that would end the age of steam-powered machines and bring the new age of electricity. His inventions would pave the way for everything from telegraphs to telephones to radios to computers.
How incredible, Aunt Nikki. Michael Faraday's discoveries truly changed the world.
Very true. And while his discoveries and theories revolutionized science, Faraday always looked for ways that his discoveries could improve everyday life.
For example, he invented a safety lamp for coal miners. And if you've ever enjoyed swimming in a pool treated with chlorine to kill bacteria, you can thank him for being the first to turn that chemical element into a liquid.
Faraday saw his work as simply discovering the principles God put in nature. He described his role as reading the book of nature, written by the finger of God.
Perhaps one of you boys and girls listening right now may one day push the boundaries of what science already knows to learn more about what God created long ago.
Or maybe you will be one to discover the cure for a disease that hurts and kills so many.
Or maybe you'll invent something wonderful or explore space or, well, you get the drift.